Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Welcome to our March OpenNTF webinar series. Today we're going to be talking about the Domino admin tool. So we're going to have a few welcoming words from myself and Graham Akers, who's the chairman of OpenNTF, along with fellow board members Jesse Gallagher and Roberto Bocadero, who are joining us and helping out on the webinar today. So thank you to everyone, and thank you to everyone for attending. We have quite a big interest in today's webinar topic, so quite a lot of you signed up. I'd like to thank all the sponsors of OpenNTF, particularly HCL, who helps fund webinars like these and contests. There's one running right now that Graham will talk about in a second, and running our organization. And also I'd like to thank Prominent because they donate basically everything computer related as well as the manpower to keep everything up and running. So thank you to both companies, and thank you to everyone who volunteers and helps out at OpenNTF. Remember, we are a volunteer organization. I'm going to turn things over to Graham.
Right, so I'm going to get you to go back to the agenda slide because you skipped over our esteemed presenter.
Okay.
Thank you very much to Heather for joining us and presenting today's topic. Just want to make sure we get that in. Let's jump ahead. Right, so the HCL Notes UI contest, which is being run by our friends business partner GroupWave in Belgium, and OpenNTF is happy to be co-sponsoring this contest. For those of you that haven't heard about it, it's still running. And the idea is to take an existing Notes application and to give it a fresh coat of paint from a Notes client and Nomad perspective for mobile devices using the tools in Domino 1201, Notes 1201. And as it says here, entries judged on usability, compatibility, and technical design. You know, the general idea of the contest is that we've all kind of got our ways of building Notes apps, but we've got new tools to put better front ends on our apps. And that's been probably one of the things that we've all heard over the years is that Notes apps are ugly or they're old or blah, blah, blah. So what we're saying is, well, let's make some contributions to the community here on new ways to build front ends using the new tools that we've got in Notes, and then share them with the community. So that's all we're looking to do here. Going to be judged by some HCL ambassadors, HCL employees, and the contest runs until Engage in May. So there's still a couple of months to register. Basically, you pull down a template and open it up on your Notes client and go ahead and do some work. And there's the link there on the page to get more details and to register.
Hey, Graham, do you know if you have to be at Engage to win or be judged, or can you enter remotely?
You definitely do not need to be at Engage to win.
All right, super.
And as Howard said, right, volunteer driven, all of us in the community, I think have gotten value from what we share and contribute, and want to encourage more of that. And my next slide is going to talk specifically about something that we're working on right now, but wanted to just talk about you know, how things have evolved since HCL has taken over, and how there's been fairly quick releases of the new Domino servers. One of the ways that people can contribute to OpenNTF in the community is if you are running an existing OpenNTF project in your environment and you've upgraded beyond version 9, we'd love to hear back from you that the application is still running, or if there are particular issues with the application, something that you've run into that's been a challenge. Little tweaks, but specifically things where projects are continuing to run, and we would expect that they do. It'd be great for us to be able to come back to those project pages and just pop in a little note that says this is verified by so-and-so in the community to have been, you know, tested and running on version 12 or version 11 or what have you. So if you think sometimes you'd like to make a contribution to the community but are either too busy or not sure what you could do, that's one small thing that we'd love to appreciate, and I think other people in the community would benefit from. So reach out to us through the Slack channel, and let us know if you're running one of our projects that's been upgraded on the newest version of Domino. So a couple of updates from the board, and as I just alluded to, the first one is a very specific community project that we're announcing today, and we'll have more information coming up in the next couple of days. But there was a post in our Slack community probably late last year or so about people looking for the old presentations from Lotusphere or user groups gone by. And wouldn't it be great if OpenNTF could host those? So we took that and started doing some work to figure out what we could host and where we need to pay attention to copyright. For example, anything coming out of Lotusphere. So far, we've found almost everything coming out of Lotusphere is copyrighted by IBM, which is understandable. So we've taken a step to reach out to IBM to see if we can get permission to be able to host those presentations on OpenNTF for the community. But in the meantime, basically any presentation that's been done at any user group can also be uploaded. And of course, the person who gives the presentation needs to give permission for OpenNTF to host it. But again, we're community driven, and that's the whole idea. So we figured that it would make sense for us to build an application to be able to do that. Oliver Busa from our board is going to lead this project. And what we're looking for is people in the community who are interested in joining on, and whether that be some development work or some design work, some UI work, documentation testing, any little contribution would help. And we're looking at this as an opportunity for people who maybe haven't made a contribution to OpenNTF in the past, but are interested in doing so. We'd very much like you to join up. That certainly doesn't mean that people who have made contributions to OpenNTF in the past shouldn't sign up to join this project. Please, everybody sign up to join it, and we'll find something for you to do. And so we're starting off with an open chat in a new channel on our Slack chat. As you can see there, slack.opentf.com, and the channel is presentation-project. So jump in there if you're interested, and we'll start some conversation. We're also going to put together a blog post and a video for our YouTube channel to explain a little bit more, but Oliver's already jumped into his copy of Volt and had a little play on an upload screen. Pardon me. So we've already got some ideas percolating, but we'd love to get some more input from the community and some people to jump in and play around with it. Ultimately, what we want to do is have a page where people can upload their presentations, give permission to share that presentation with the community, and then obviously a page where we can go in and search for and download those presentations. We're also thinking that if a presentation has been posted to SlideShare or some other slide sharing service on the internet, that we can keep a link to that presentation rather than actually uploading it to OpenNTF. So we're open to a whole bunch of different ideas and want to get that project started. So if you're interested, let us know. The other topic here is, actually, I'm going to take a quick sip.
While you're doing that, Graham, I put the link for the Slack channel in the chat. Hopefully that works.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so on to the future of OpenNTF. One of the things that we've been talking about for the last while is how do we evolve OpenNTF? How do we better serve the community? What are the things that people look to us for? And maybe some things that we haven't done in the past that we can offer to the community. So the board has been doing some work on this for the last, well, we started late last year. So what we're going to do is put together a brief presentation on our thoughts and share it with the community and ask for folks to give their feedback, offer other ideas, and again, give everybody in the community an opportunity to have their say. And we've taken the interesting step to put together a Discord channel that we're going to test out. One of the things that we've been thinking about is the usefulness of Slack and the unfortunate fact that their pay model is just something that we can't sustain. And therefore, by not paying for Slack, we are losing contributions off the back end of the timeline over time. And so we're looking for another tool to use to be able to retain all of that valuable input over time. So we're going to give Discord a try. So this is just a heads up to watch in the coming days. We're going to have some announcements and share that information with the community and ask you to give your feedback. So looking forward to that. You can take this one, Howard.
Sure. Just a quick note. Engage will be in Bruges in Belgium in May 23rd. It was originally going to happen in March, got moved, and looks like this is a go. I mean, things are getting better, thankfully. So if you haven't signed up and something you're interested in, please go to the Engage website and sign up. It should be a great event. As you can see from the pictures, it's a very beautiful town. Okay, next webinar we are still working on. And in June, we're going to try to have an OpenNTF annual meeting. We're going to try to start doing these once a year. So the date and exact topics are to be determined, but we'll keep everyone posted. Okay, so asking questions, we encourage your questions. And the first question is always, will this be recorded? And yes, we put it on our YouTube channel, which you can use the URL above, or just go to opentf.org/webinars, and you'll find a whole table of all our old webinars and links to both the YouTube as well as the presentations. Please ask your questions in the questions pane. That's in the GoToWebinar interface. We will respond to your questions verbally at the end. So don't look for an answer in the questions pane, but we will have time at the end for questions that Heather can take. Please keep all your topics related to the, or all your questions related to the topic that Heather's speaking about, which is the admin tool. I know Heather works for HCL, but don't ask her when the next version of Domino's coming out, because that's probably not under her control. She might know, but she probably shouldn't say anything. So without further ado, oops, what did we got? We lost my slides, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce Heather. Heather Hottenstein has been in the community for many years as a well-regarded admin expert, and she recently joined HCL. So she's been on both sides of the coin now. So she has a ton of experience and looking forward to learning about the admin tool.
Thanks, Howard. Yeah, so as Howard said, I've been in the Notes and Domino world since early 1994. And during that time, I did spend most of it as a business partner doing consulting services, support services for customers, but also I did spend about 4 years working internally for a cancer research hospital, part of their systems administration team. And then I joined HCL in June of last year. So I have a lot of different perspectives, a lot of history. And I also want to thank everyone at OpenNTF for letting me talk to y'all today. I'm very passionate about this platform. It's been a huge part of my life, and I love sharing knowledge. In fact, it was about a year ago that Roberto Sadar and I presented with regards to best practices for administration and designer. So excited to be back again today. And of course, thank you everybody for taking time and joining us. So as Howard and Graham said, I'm going to be talking about the all-in-one admin tool for Notes and Domino. Now, this administration tool is actually a compilation of 19 individual tools that have been created over the years by Notes and Domino support in response to some more of their common requests that they get from customers. And anybody who has, done systems work, and even developers, you create these code snippets and you save them somewhere, like for example, maybe a notes database or a Word doc, and then you can go and reuse them as you need to. And that's exactly what this tool is. Now, you probably heard me say it's been created over the years, and that's absolutely true. The reason it's being called the new admin tool is because, unfortunately, it's something that's never been marketed. So we're looking to basically solve that today in sharing this tool, sharing all of the great things it does, and hopefully you'll go ahead and download it and give it a try. So And that's exactly what I've provided you here. This right here is a URL that you can click on and go to an HCL knowledge base article that allows you to get to the document. In fact, I will show you real quick that right there it is, okay? So it does exist, and there is on here a zip file that you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna download, okay? Now that zip contains 2 files, okay? It has a notes template, and it also has a README text file. And then just like any other zip file, you're gonna go ahead and extract the contents. And for deploying that template in your environment, the first thing you wanna do is you want to copy that template file to your machine's notes data folder. And also, unless you want to receive a bunch of execution control list pop-ups, you're going to want to ensure you sign that with your user ID file. And then once you have that template signed, just like you do for any other new database you're looking to create off of a template, you'll create a new NSF using or specifying the Admin Tools 1.4 template. Now, as far as where you're going to put this database, that's your decision. You can put it locally on your drive, or you can run it on the server. And you're probably going, well, I want to do this on server databases, and that's okay. It can be local on your computer, and you basically point it to the servers in your environment, and it'll run against those server databases. And you'll see that here in a little bit. So as we move into the utility, I do want to add that this is something that I have used in my past successfully. And I was really happy when I found out about this tool years ago, because exactly, just like any tool, you expect it to save you time. And it's definitely done that for me over the years. So I definitely appreciate the people that have created these tools. And as I go through them, I'm going to give you some examples of how they've saved me time based on, I guess you could say I was at one time doing things the wrong way, and then I learned a better way to do it through this tool. So you may have seen when I showed you the navigator in the previous slide, but now I'll go over into the database, that this navigator here, like I said, it has 19 different tools. And the first 4 are with regards to the out of office system. Now, out of office is something that's been in Notes and Domino for a while. It's been there for several versions, and it is a bit of a complex animal. It's got a lot of different moving parts, and so these 4 tools help you understand out of office issues and what you can do in terms of researching them, troubleshooting them, and hopefully resolving them. Overall, the first document or tool type is out of office concurrent configuration. Now, the first thing I want to show you, since this is the first tool I'm showing you, is that most of these tools, or actually all of these tools, at the top, they have a help button. And that help button opens a respective document that provides you information on what this specific tool does and how you want to go about using it. Okay, so if you don't worry about taking notes, and I understand you don't have time to listen to this entire presentation later, you'll be able to figure it out by using the help that's already been provided to you. Okay, Heather, the other thing I'm sorry?
Sorry to interrupt, Heather. We've got a barrage of people asking if we could share the URL in the chat. Got a bunch of people who want to download it already.
Yeah, let me grab that real quick for you. Hold on. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
How do I get to the chat? I've never had to do the WebEx chat or go to webinar chat.
Let's just
there should be yeah, if you don't, you see the chat, the little thing you expand in the go to webinar.
Up at the, probably you're up at the top because you're sharing your screen. Tell you what, people will have enough of a chance to get it. Folks, we'll give you 5 more seconds to grab that URL yourself quickly.
Yeah, I'll find it in Google and post it.
Yeah, Howard, if you Google HCL Domino admin tool, it'll come right up.
Okay, I'll get it and post it.
Or all-in-one admin tool like that. Absolutely. That's awesome news, Val. Very cool. I love it. All right, so where was I? Oh, I wanted to add another thing here, okay? While I would love to walk through this tool tool by tool and show you live how it works, because it really does work. Okay, I actually in preparation for this went through and tested everything out, so I can tell you it works. Unfortunately, some of these, especially when you're client server based, it can take a little time for them to process. So I will be relying on the slides that show things and also previously created log file information. Kind of think of this like the cooking show, right? I'm going to show you how to mix it all together and then what the final product is, basically. So anyway, with regards to out of office current configuration, out of office, when it was originally created, it ran as an agent. Each individual mail database that users have has an out of office agent, and that agent runs in the background on the Domino server on some type of schedule. Now, in Domino 8, the out of office offering was updated to also allow you to run out of office as a service. And when out of office runs as a service, it's the server's mail router that handles the out of office notification process. So as you can already imagine, if I have a user who's complaining to me that their out of office isn't working, or even worse, it is working, and they're like, no, it's disabled and I'm here, the first level of troubleshooting this process is understanding whether or not my server is running out of office as an agent or a service. And that's exactly what this diagnostic does for me. So going back over to my presentation, let me just go back into sharing mode. Current slide. There we go. So that's exactly what this tool does. It allows you to see whether or not out of office is set up as an agent or a service, and it also assists you with doing some debug when out of office is set up as a service. So ultimately, go into the tool, I enter information, or I can, about my mail server, and then I press this Get Out of Office Configuration button. And what it returns back to me is information about the configuration documents I have. Now, that is the server configuration documents. So specifically, it's going to the router SMTP Advanced Controls tab, and then it's looking at the out of office type field. Now you can see here that the 4 servers, or the 4 configuration documents it's pulled information back, shows everything in my environment is configured to run as a service. So at that time now, I can go ahead and turn on debugging. With regards to turning on debugging, I use this button, and all it's doing behind the scenes, it's issuing to my Domino server a set config. And it's using the debug_OOS parameter that it's going to write to the server's notes.ini. To enable it, it sets to it to a 1. And after I've done my troubleshooting, best practice, I want to make sure that I go ahead and reissue that command. However, this time it's going to use the 0 value. So it's going to turn it off of my Domino server and stop that debug so I don't have that extra overhead. So now let's talk a little bit more about out of office. Like I said, it is a big animal and it has a lot of moving components. So ultimately, how do I learn about all that information? Well, we have the out of office diagnostic tool. Now, when you use the out of office diagnostic tool, just like some other tools in this database, you do have the option of specifying either individual users or multiple users. In addition, you can use a text file to provide a list of the respective mail files. Now that text file you create, you can do it manually, like for example, using Notepad and saving it with a .txt extension, where the mail files, you need to make sure you specify the mail folder and the file name. However, the NSF, it's up to you if you put that .nsf there or not. In addition, there's a little trick by using the convert process that's available to you, where on your Domino server, if you issue a load convert -L as in Lima, and then provide a file name, it will give you an output of all of the mail files on that Domino server. So as we go through this, you're going to see there are some tools where actually getting that type of list is really helpful. So remember that. It's going to save you a lot of typing. And if you're like me, when you do typing, you have typos, and that causes error messages. And we all hate that. So remember that load convert -L. But anyway, with regard to the out-of-office diagnostic, I go ahead and I put in my information about, where the mail server, the mail files, or my text file, and then I click the begin test button. And what it returns back to me is some log information, okay? Now, for some of these utilities, the log information is right here included for you. Some others, you're gonna get, I will be honest here, it's a little kludgy in the UI. You're gonna get a pop-up, see the log file for more information. And you'll be like, okay, I looked at my local log NSF, I looked at my server's log NSF, it has nothing. Where is this data? Where is it hiding? It's okay, it's right here in this action log. That's part of the navigator, and it keeps this information for you as you use the utility, okay? So going back to the diagnostic, you can see here that I have information about both a user that's called Buckaroo Banzai and also myself. And if I go into the document for Buckaroo, you can see that all of this information has been pulled back with regards to the out of office, okay? And in addition, if I go into mine, what I really want to show you is one of my favorite pieces, is it actually gives you all of that underlying information that's part of an out-of-office profile document. So to me, that's one of the most helpful things that it does. But it lets you know, yes, there is an out-of-office profile document, or for other types of the out-of-office, there are not respective profile documents. So as you can see, this tool is also giving you a glimpse at all of that underlying stuff that's out of office that for some people is just a mystery or a magical black box. And if you're like me, you love learning about the under the cover stuff. All right, so now that you know whether or not you're using out of office as an agent or a service, you've done some troubleshooting, you've been able to get all your diagnostic information about all the different bits and bytes and pieces of the puzzle, you may find out that you have a problem, like for example, with a profile document, or you might find out that you have a problem with an agent, out of office profile documents, agents, they are just documents in the background. And so they sometimes can get a little bit of corruption. And with corrupted documents, you basically have three choices. You can try running utilities against the database. You can go ahead and get a backup copy, restore type of thing done, or you can go ahead and delete that offending document and then have a new one created. And that's exactly what the remove out of office profile an agent does for you. So this utility, again, I'm going to define my mail file and my user or users, and then I can take specific steps. So like, for example, if in my troubleshooting, I have determined I do have an out-of-office profile document, but maybe it has something wonky going on, has something weird going on with it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete it and then have the user recreate it by going back in and resetting their out-of-office to start running again. And I can do that using this button. Also, I have the ability within this utility to delete the out-of-office agent. So the out-of-office agent, I'll delete by using this respective button. Now, because it is a design element, once I've deleted it, it's probably a good idea to put it back in the database. So the way I can refresh or replace that design element is go ahead and click the refresh the design button, where it's going to look at the mail database. It's going to say, okay, this is the template, and off of the server, it's going to do a refresh database design, getting a fresh, brand new out-of-office agent back into the database, okay? And now the user hopefully will be able to move forward and successfully use their out-of-office. Oops, excuse me. All right, so that's the out-of-office profile. And then it also does here, it gives you some log information. I am not going to do that just because it takes a little bit of time to spit that out. So in the interest of time, I'm going to move forward. So our final issue that we might run into with regards to out-of-office is the case where the user is actually in the office, they're available, and there are people that are sending them messages are getting back notifications that they're not available. And in the front line of troubleshooting, like if it's running as an out-of-office agent, you'll go ahead and you'll say, well, in their mail file, out of office is currently disabled. So what little gremlin is out there on my server that's doing this? It's possible that there is a replica or a copy of their mail database that is in a different folder structure under the data folder that actually has the out-of-office agent enabled. So the out-of-office duplicate enabled agent search will go against a single mail file or user that you specify, and it will look for any mail database that has an out-of-office agent enabled for that particular user. Now, when I run that in my environment, I get back some log file information, which is available in the action log. And specifically, I want to go to this one right here, enable agent search, which I ran the other week against my mail database, and it went against my server's entire data folder, and it came back and it said to me that an out-of-office agent was not found enabled for the selected user on the server. Now, in my case, I wasn't having a problem, so this was actually good information to get back. However, in the case where you had a user having a particular mail issue, you would get back at that point information about those different databases, their folder name and their file name information. So you could then go to that database and either just simply delete or disable that agent, or you might find, you know what, this was brought back from a restore that we've already taken care of the documents and got them back into the mail file, so we can just go ahead and get rid of the database and do that level of cleanup. All right, so now we've talked about out of office, let's move into some other other common administration areas of Domino mail administration. So I want to talk next about prohibiting design tool. Okay, going back over to our presentation, I'm sorry I'm bouncing around, but let's talk about the use case where I have upgraded my Domino environment. Like say, for example, I've gone from release 9 to release 12. And for my mail users, I want to give them that new mail template. So I go ahead and I upgrade the database design. However, in doing some checks against my users' mail files, or perhaps in the types of questions or problems I see my users having, I discovered that not all of the design elements in their mail database got updated. Okay, so why did that happen? And also, how do I get their design to be upgraded? You know, as an administrator, I'd probably first look at that and go, okay, well, I'll just manually run the refresh or update, replace database design again. And if I did it again, I'm probably going to see the same outcome where those database design elements didn't get updated. Now, the reason that that occurs is because, especially if this mail file has been around for a long time, it's possible it was created back in a day when the user had designer access to their mail database. And so they customized some things. Like, for example, that all documents view, I really wanted to show something different. I wanted, sorting or different column set us, different columns. And so they made those changes and they put on there a prohibit design element flag so that refresh replace design wouldn't update it. So as a user of this utility, you can go ahead and use the prohibit design element diagnostic tool. Again, you're going to go ahead and define that database of the user, and it's going to return back to you a list of design elements where the prohibit replace design flag is set. So now you know what the offending design elements are. And in addition, you can go ahead at this point and either individually select those design elements that you want to remove that flag, or you can say, you know what, let's go ahead and just disable all of them because I really want standards and I really want all of my mail files to be uniform across my system. And after you've done that, the next refresh replace design or the next time the designer task runs on the Domino server, that mail file is going to be brought into line with the respective mail template. All right, another one that I have seen over the course of working with Domino mail files is with regards to mail files that have folders that are duplicated. Now, in the user interface, if you try to create a folder that has the same file name, or excuse me, the same folder name, it's going to tell you no. So a user already has a folder name called sales. They try to create another folder name called sales in their mail file. It says, no, can't do that. And the same thing is true as if you go into the designer client and you try to also create a new folder in the design collection called sales. However, programmatically in the back end through Lotus script, you could create 12 new sales folders. Unfortunately, it lets you do that. So programmatically, you may have had somebody that was, had something done against their mail database. Also, I have seen this, and don't quote me on this, but I think a previous version of Domino may have had a bug that allowed this to happen. So again, you run into an issue where a user has folders with the same name. They may have, they probably have a different folder collection, and you just want to get things solved for the user. So utility has what is known as a fix duplicate folders tool. And you can go ahead and first of all, use the button that says check for duplicates and folders in this utility. Okay, so it's going to look for any folders that have a duplicate. And then you can use the button to go ahead and fix those folders. And after the folders have been fixed, meaning everything's been moved into one folder with that type of name, then finally I can remove those empty folders. So getting the user back to a state where they don't have their mail documents in these different folders and causing them confusion. Alrighty, another one that I actually love this utility. It's one that I've used quite a bit over the years in supporting Notes and Domino customers. So, other mail systems, they don't have an all documents view. And I actually love the all documents view. It's what I use to manage my notes email, but there are users that are very heavy on folders. And so if there is an email message that they've received, but it's not in any of their self-created folders and it's not in the inbox, then to them, the email message is totally missing. And they think, oh my God, my database is corrupt, or I have to have a restore done. No, it's just that the document, it is there, it's part of the collection, it's in the all documents view. However, from the user's perspective, like I said, something's broken. So user's perception is the administrator's reality. So to resolve that problem, we are going to use the rebuild mail database inbox tool. And by doing this, or by running this after I've selected things and using the rebuild button, what it's going to do is it's going to take any email message that's in my mail database that I've received, and if it is not in a user-defined folder and it is not part of the inbox, then it's going to take the message and move it into the inbox. So now from the user's perspective, they can find all of their email messages. And again, making a happy user. Now, what I want to show you here is what the log looks like. So let's go back to our activity log. And specifically, I'm looking for this. Hold on. Maybe this one? No, that's not it. Oh my goodness, it like ran away. Oh, here it is, right here. Sorry about that. Anyway, you can see that when I ran this, it went ahead and it looked at my mail database. It went through all of the views and the folders, and it moved over a total of 2 documents for me. So voila, I now have all my documents in places where I can easily find them. Alrighty, so now moving on, let's go ahead and let's talk about a case that, again, as an administrator, I have run into a lot, okay? And this is where a user is having some kind of weirdness in their mail database. You know, and that weirdness, it can be just about anything. Like, for example, it could be where email messages are just disappearing in a weird way and they're not part of all documents view. I've also seen issues of where view indices are not being properly updated even after I've run utilities against the database. And ultimately, you know, kind of comes down to the more aggressive things that I've done to resolve those problems is I have created like a new replica of the mail database. I've even gone in and created a new notes copy of the database by going to the file menu and selecting File, Application, New Copy. Okay, and I found that that didn't even resolve the problem. So this here is another attempt to get the user back into a functional state and get all the documents moved over to another brand new notes database. Now, you know, you're going, okay, well, all documents view. You go in there, you do a Control A, you go into the new mail file you've created into the all documents view and do a Control V. Well, yeah, they have their documents. But you remember a couple of minutes ago, I was talking about users that really like their folders and they like having how everything's organized. Do you really want to sit there for each document and figure out what folder it's supposed to be a member of? I know I sure as heck don't want to do that. So this is what the tool allows you to do. It actually copies things over folder by folder for you. Now, in addition, another use case where this tool can be really helpful is where you have somehow the user's got 2 copies of their mail file. Okay, and I've seen this happen, you know, things get moved around, especially if you're doing like a server consolidation project. And now the users get 2 mail files, they have different document collections, and who wants to check 2 mail files? You know, it's bad enough that most of us have a business email account and a personal Gmail account, and just trying to keep track of that can be a nightmare. So we want to get the user back into a happy place where they just have 1 mail file to worry about. And again, this tool allows you to do that. So what I want to do is first a little prep work, okay? So I want to emphasize you do have some prep work before you actually go to the utility and create this new document request, or you create this new request. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to run on your Domino server for the original database, okay? This is the original or the source database. You're going to run on the server console a load convert with a -m as in Mike command, specifying the file path and file name of that database. Now what that does is it enables what is known as folder reference. Folder reference in a Domino database is where the documents are now aware of what folder they belong to, because the default functionality is where the folder just knows about its documents. Okay, so it's really important that you go ahead and enable folder reference so those documents are folder aware. In addition, as a preparation step for the base where you're creating a new mail file for the user, you're going to go ahead and create a designed copy of their database. So by creating a designed copy of their database, you are going to get all of the user's self-created folders. They're going to come right over for you, okay? And then you go ahead and in the new request, you fill out the originating servers, originating mail files information, and you also go ahead and you select the destination database. In this case, it's that brand new copy that I created. Now, when I click on the Create Copy button, what it's going to do is it's going to go against that source database, Mail H Hottenstein NSF, and it's going to copy the documents over to my new H Hottens DB copy.nsf database. And like I said, it's going to keep all of those folder collections. So as a user, when I go into my new database, I have all of my folders organized like I expect. Now, in addition, in the case where you are creating a brand new database for a user, thinking about their workspace and other things that might be going on with their mail database, it's probably advantageous to keep the same replica ID. So I can use this option right here, copy replica ID, and it will take the replica ID off of my original source database and put it on that new database, okay? Now that's the case where I need to move everything over to a brand new database. Now let's think about the situation where I want to merge two databases. It's very similar to what I just discussed, in that the first thing you're going to do is determine which database is your source and which one is your destination, meaning coming out of this, which one is going to win? Which database am I going to be giving the user as their only mail file moving forward? And for that server that I determine is going to be the source, of course, I need to run that enable folder reference command. And then I will specify things with regards to the request for one server to be the source or one database to be the source and the other one to be the destination. And again, using that create copy, it's going to move documents from the source to the destination with a little bit of a difference in that if it runs across a document, when it goes to do the copy command, if it runs across a document in the destination database that has the same UNID, then it doesn't copy it over. So really nice thing to know there, because that means that coming out of this process, your users aren't going to have a bunch of duplicated documents. Again, happier users, which we all love. All right, so let's move on and let's talk about profile documents. You know, and profile documents, they can basically be in any Notes database. They're a great development utility. The mail file is absolutely no exception. It has a lot of profile documents. And in fact, if you run this tool against any of your mail databases, you might actually be shocked just how many profile documents are part of the mail database design. But anyway, you know, profile documents, they're like any other document. And especially for a mail file that's been around for a really long time, those documents can get wonky. They can, I hate to use the word corruption, but that's basically what happens. Also, I've run into this very common use case is where a user will go into their database properties. Now they're doing this through their preferences by going to more preferences, which is essentially bringing up their calendar profile document, and they'll set up their soft deletes. Because I don't know if you know this, but other mail systems, your trash doesn't really go away unless the administrator on the server side tells it to go away, okay? Or the user goes in and they do a manual purge. So being that Domino's trash automatically deletes it after 48 hours, users go, well, you know what? I just want things to go to the trash so they're kind of out of the way. It's kind of like putting things in the garage of your house, right? They go in the garage and you don't worry about it unless you have to go get it, right? And that's what I see with users. They look at their trash as that type of container. So they'll go in, they'll figure it out, like do a Google, whatever, and they'll go and they'll set their purge of deletions to like some crazy value, like 1,000, whatever. And that then can cause problems in the calendar profile document. Also, you may run into, you know, just any kind of issue where the profile document has incorrect information and it can't be resolved. So the easiest way to deal with that kind of problem is to delete the calendar profile document and create a new one. Now, the problem, I mean, that sounds simple. Profile documents are not visible and not manageable through the user interface. You have to write some code to do that. Now, that sounds great. However, if you're like me, you became a systems administrator because you don't want to write code, that can be a little bit of an icky thing. And again, that's why we have this utility. So with regards to the remove profiles utility, it's going to do exactly what it says. It's going to allow me to delete one. Now, I do want to point out here, you do not want to use this for the out of office profile documents, okay? And the biggest reason is because, first of all, you do have a specific tool for that. You know, we went over that when we were talking about the out of office profile and agent deletion utility. And the biggest reason is because that utility where it says, okay, go ahead and delete an out of office profile document, what it's actually also doing is it's removing two fields that are part of the database properties header information. And those two fields have to be deleted in order for the out of office profile document deletion to completely work. Okay, so just remember that out of office profile documents, use the other utility that's up under out of office tools. But any other profile documents, you can go ahead and do this here. So you're going to go ahead and select your information, and then you're going to click populate choices. Okay, and when you click populate choices, it's going to provide for you a list of all of the profile documents that exist in the database. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm pretty good on time right now, so I'm going to run this one live and show you exactly how many there are. So give me just one moment here. Okay. So let me go ahead and select my database. And I also want to point out here, this is just not for mail databases. This utility here, you can use for any database that you have in your environment. So I'm going to go ahead, and then of course you can see this is my open database dialog box. So I could either navigate, or being that I'm a typer, I can go ahead and type my information, open, and you can see it's pulled back information, and I'll go ahead and do populate choices. Just give it a moment here. And now, voila, you can see, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but to me, this is, especially if you aren't a developer and you don't look at this stuff under the hood very often, it's like, wow, like seriously, what do these all do? But ultimately, during your troubleshooting, working on this user's problem, you've determined which profiles you need to delete. So at this point now, I can select one, or I could select, I don't want to do that one because that's part of my out of office, or no, it's not. I Notes is fine. But I can go ahead and select multiples, and then I can use the remove selected button. And effectively what that's going to do for me is it's going to go ahead and delete that profile or profile documents. Okay. All righty. So let's move on and let's talk about another use case. Oh my. So being that I have been doing Notes and Domino for a long time, back in the day, which would be, like circa 1998, I ran into this one a lot. Okay, and for you out there, for any of you out there that have been around for a while, you either already know what I'm going to say, or as soon as I say it, you'd be like, oh yeah. So back in, like, for example, release 3 of Notes, everybody's mail file, the user by default had manager access. Now, as you know, the manager role or the manager level of access is special. It allows you to do some very advanced features or high-level features, like, for example, being able to update the access control list. It also allows the user to delete their mail database. Actually, at one time, as I mentioned earlier, I worked for a really large cancer research hospital. And I'm not lying when I say this, at least once a week, we had a help desk ticket come in, a user had deleted their mail database, and we had to go restore that from backup. So I can just tell you that in release 4, when the user only needed a maximum of Designer to actually effectively use their mail file, I was so happy because they couldn't delete it anymore. And then of course, Designer's okay, but do I really want people messing with the design of their mail database? So in release 5 and above, the user only needs editor access to effectively use their mail database. So you have mail databases out there where they were created a long time ago and the ACL is elevated because of just that was the way it was at that point in time, or perhaps you had a previous administrator that they just let it continue to be manager. They're like, oh yeah, they need to be manager. We're just going to set them, the mail owners, as manager. Well, as you coming in and wanting to do cleanup in your environment, you can use this edit mail database owner access control utility. And the way that this works is it looks at the information in the mail file, specifically the calendar profile document, to determine who is the mail owner. And then it looks for that respective entry in the database that you have defined, or the databases. It goes through them one at a time, and it will set that user in the ACL, their explicit entry, to now have the level of access that you provide. Now, this is one of those utilities that, unless you just have a couple of mail files that have an out of scope access control or an out of standard access control, this is one where I would recommend using that convert command that I showed you earlier, which gives you an output of all of your mail files in a text list. And then you can just go ahead, use that text file, click the Save Changes button, and it's going to run against each mail database, and voila, your mail owners now have the level of access that's at a lower level and doesn't allow them to inadvertently do things in the environment that you don't want them to be doing. Alrighty, and real quick, I do want to show you in the log file what that looks like. So if I go to my log, and I am looking for the one that I ran a couple weeks ago again. What happened to these? Okay, something happened to my log. Give me just 1 second. Mail DB owner access. Okay, I apologize, I'm not seeing it. So, but ultimately here in the log file, it is going to tell you for the mail file what it did in terms of, it's going to say, I changed this user's mail access to, for example, editor rights. Okay. All righty. So let's go ahead next and talk about templates. Okay. I love templates. They're absolutely a best practice where you have your template and your developers will develop just on that template. And then once the template's ready, you promote it to your production server and you allow Designer to run, or doing a manual replace, refresh design, and your databases get updated with that new design. Now, what can happen is you can see errors in your log file when Designer runs at, for example, 1 a.m. by default, in that you have multiple templates claiming to be the same template value. And that can happen whether or not the database has an NTF or an NSF extension. Because just a real quick notes comment here, when you look at, let me actually go out here on my home screen. When you look at a database design properties, excuse me, and you look at the design information, you know, the database is set or configured to inherit from a particular template name. Now on the flip side, the template is set to have a template name. However, when you say, I've got a database that is a master template and I provide a template name, there's nothing in Notes that's going to stop you doing this for a database that's an NSF or an NTF. And especially in the case where you've gone into the server on the back end and you've created a local OS copy of a template and said, okay, you know what, I'm just going to rename it to an NSF. Well, that's great, it's an NSF, but it has this template name defined. And so to Domino, that is a conflict. And it's going to tell you about it in the log file. In addition, you can also see some funkiness when Designer runs overnight. You know, like for example, I go ahead, I push out a new template design, everything looks great. My users are happy and see the changes I've given them. And then the next day I come in and everything has gone back. I know I've seen that happen and it's not pretty. So that's another weird thing that can happen. Now, luckily, there's a utility here. It's the search for duplicate templates utility. And when you run this and click the search button, it gives you an output of where there are duplicates. In this case, I had 3 database objects that have all said that they were the standard 7 journal. And you can see here that their file names were NTF, NTF, and NSF. So now by knowing this information, I can go and do cleanup. Now I do want to point out here that the cleanup step is something you have to do manually. Basically, you're going to ascertain which one is your real one that you want to keep moving forward, and then you'll delete the other 2, either doing a file database delete through the Notes UI, or of course, you can also do a delete by going to the OS level of the database. I mean, OS level of the server, excuse me. All right, so here's another one that I have run into multiple times, in that For, like I said previously, for out of office especially, historically it ran as an agent. So I had to allow databases, especially mail databases, to have the ability to run background agents. But once I have converted out of office from an agent to a service, which by the way is a best practice. So if you're in your environment, you're still running out of office as an agent and you're on server 8 or above and your users are on Notes 8 or above, I highly recommend you make that configuration change because your users are going to be happier for a couple of reasons. First of all, your users can now set their out of office to a range of hours instead of an entire day. In addition, from a user's perspective, they set their out of office and they don't have to worry about turning it off. It does it automatically after it basically expires, meaning that they said, I'm going to be out of the office from 9 a.m. to noon. It's now afternoon on the server, so I'm going to disable that. The server takes care of it for you. And then the final reason your users are going to love it is because people that send them email get an instant notification that they're not available. Where the agent-based method, it runs on a schedule. So let's say it's set to run every 6 hours. Well, it could be literally 5 hours and 55 minutes until that mail sender finds out that the person that they just sent an email to that said, urgent, I need help immediately, actually gets an out-of-office agent response. Nobody wants to, have that type of frustration. So like I said, definitely move to service. But coming back onto point here, with regards to that out-of-office agent, and I've now changed things to be a service, I really probably don't want agents running on my mail files anymore because, agents are great. Don't get me wrong. They have a lot of power. They can do great things. However, they can also do bad things. So to avoid problems, to avoid potential rogue activity in your environment, you can go ahead and you can say, for all my mail files, I want to disable background agents. So there is a utility here that says edit database property, disable background agents. And again, this is one that would probably be advantageous to get a list of all of your mail files and specify it here. And then of course you can say whether or not you want to enable it or disable it. And of course, in this case, I want to disable them. All right, I have selected enabled here, it's the default, but you would change it to disable. And then when it would run, you would go ahead and you would see on the user's mail database, let me do that for you real quick here, show you on a mail file. Actually, go to my mail file and go to properties. Right here, I've got it already open, database properties. And after it would run, this option right here would be selected, meaning I no longer am allowing any background agents to run in this database. So yay, I have now just taken another step towards securing my Domino service. All righty. Another comment or another request that I have seen quite often as an administrator is where I have somebody asking for an export of my mail databases and their respective information. Like for example, I may get a request, can you give me an output of your mail databases, each database name, the title of it, because that's going to tell you which user it's for, and its size, okay? So we have, in order for you to do that without having to write any code, the Create Mail Database Spreadsheet tool. And this is one of my favorites because it allows you to very quickly provide information. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to go ahead and bring this document up. Okay, so you can see here in the document that all I need to do is go ahead and select the server, okay? And I select any of these database properties that I want outputted. And so you can select either, just a couple. You could also select them all if you want. But after you go ahead and you click the Create Spreadsheet button, it's going to write out all of that database property information as a CSV. And to hop over here to Excel real quick, you can see that I now have a CSV file that I've uploaded into Excel that gives me database title information, the file name, path, server, design, and of course its overall size. So I love this utility because this is huge in terms of, being able to get information about your environment, especially if you're looking at, when you're looking at doing upgrades, or you might be looking at doing a server consolidation project. This allows you to really understand information about those databases. Okay. All righty. All right, so next utility. I've actually run into this a lot as well over my career, and I know I keep saying this, but especially if you ever work on any type of litigation issues, right? And that you need to get a list of mail messages that contain information, right? Now, if you actually are doing real legal litigation and e-discovery, you're probably needing different utilities because you're probably looking at data collections that are, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of documents. But in the case where I know that I've just got a couple of emails that I'm looking for, this can be really helpful. In addition to just being able to search against a database and get information that has a particular keyword or string, also it's helpful to actually get doc links to those messages. So the mail database search utility, what that allows you to do is to define an individual to define a mail server. And again, you can select or define just a mail database or a couple of mail database, or you can also use that list of mail databases, like if you actually wanted to look on your whole server. And then of course you search for a particular string, and when you search, it's going to give you an output. And that output looks exactly like this following document, okay, that's available in the activity or the action log. And in the action log document, it'll tell you, what server it searched for, and then it gives you the information about that particular mail database. And here are 3 documents that point to documents that contain the word error. So very helpful in terms of being able to collect information or find information. So mail rules, I will admit I kind of have a love-hate relationship with mail rules, especially as an administrator. I do not like the mail rule that allows users to auto-forward. I was so glad when finally the ability to be able to restrict where you can forward your email came into play. But ultimately, I get it. Mail rules are very helpful for users in terms of being able to manage their mail effectively. Like for example, when mail comes in, if it has a certain keyword or if it's for a particular person, it can automatically put it into a folder, take some type of action. However, the problem with mail rules is, especially with older releases of Notes and Domino, is they can be a little buggy in terms of if as a user, I have a mail rule and it's running, and then for whatever reason, I decide I want rid of it. Well, as a user, I go into my mail rules and I say, delete this mail rule. However, if that mail rule is still enabled at the time it was deleted, it doesn't actually delete out of my mail database. And so it's now part of your back-end collection of back-end configuration. And so from the user's perspective, the mail rule continues running even though it's not listed as a mail rule, which causes incredible frustration and confusion. And ultimately, you can think of this as a rogue mail rule at that time. Now, historically, and the way that I did it before I learned about this utility is I would go to the calendar profile document, delete it, and then have the user recreate it. And that sounds simple enough, right? You just just go ahead, delete it, and recreate it. Well, the problem with that is calendar profile document, as you probably know, is kind of big in that, you go to your mail file, you go to more preferences, and now you have all of these different tabs, right? And so again, I don't want to just delete this and then tell the user, just go recreate it, because they're gonna be like, well, I can't remember what I had set. And, like, what did I have for my signature again? All that kind of stuff. So me being a good administrator and trying to be helpful to the user, I'll actually go through and tab by tab take screenshots and save them into Word, and then afterwards we recreate it, matching up each screenshot and making the settings the same again. And that takes time. And all I really needed to do was delete a mail rule, okay? Which is really just a small component of the calendar profile document. It's just not available in the UI. So what you have here is one of my favorites is the edit mail rules utility, okay? So with the edit mail rules utility, I go ahead, I define the database that I want to search against, and when I click populate choices, it gives me an output of the mail rules that are enabled, okay? And I'm actually going to do this one live with y'all. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to mail rules. Okay, we're going to select a database. Again, get your open database dialog box. I select it. And like I said before, I am a typer. \. Okay. And now I go ahead and click populate choices. Just going to go this moment. And you can see, just like I had on screenshot, I have the same two mail rules here. And I may say at that point, okay, well, I know for sure I want to delete this one. So I just go ahead and I select it. I can select just one, or granted, I only have two here, but you can select however many it is you really want to. And then you go ahead and you click the remove selected profile document rule button, and it will go ahead at that point and remove the underlying back-end mail rule that's part of the calendar profile document. So not only as an administrator has it saved you time because you were able to delete that mail rule without having to delete the calendar profile document, but you also avoided all of the end user confusion of having to recreate that document. So again, another huge win. All righty. So now, log files. You know, I have to say, I really love Domino, and probably my biggest reason I love it is because it gives me so much output in terms of log file information. And yes, I do have my log.nsf. I have other information being written out to Domino databases like the Domino domain monitor. I have the StatRep database. However, there's also a lot of log file information that gets written to text files, like the console log, the traveler logs. And if any of you have ever tried to go against those logs, because you open them in Notepad or Notepad++, reading them and trying to extract information can kind of be a bear, okay? So what we have is the ability to use a log analysis utility here. And specifically, it is going to go against a file, a text file that I have provided its information about. Now, I do want to specify that for something like a server's console log, you actually will need to either go to your server, get a hold of that file and copy it to your local computer, or, and I know that some people are going to go, oh, that's a security violation, but you could also consider mapping a network drive to your server's data folder, okay, and or other folder structure. And I'll let you all determine if you want to really do that or not in your environment. But ultimately, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select that log file, and I can even do case-sensitive searches, and I can determine, you know what, I already have an output file. Do I want to append or not? And I then finally say, what specific string do I want to search for here? And I click the search button. What it's going to do at that point is it's going to create the output file, in this case, hhsearch.txt, and it places it into my computer's local notes data folder, okay? And when it creates it, I have here, out of the console log, all of the individual lines that reference hottenstein.nsf. And if you've ever looked at a huge console log, you can already see that if you're troubleshooting a particular issue, just how much easier this is to read and allow you to get a handle on what's really important. Or in a case where you might be doing a root cause analysis report and you're providing information to your boss, this just allowed you to get that information without having to do a bunch of copy paste from the console log to a new Word or Notepad document. So as an administrator, I love this one. It has made my life much easier. All righty, mail send. You know, mail is a great part of Domino. It's been there from pretty much the beginning, and especially when we get into like workflow agents, right? In that something happens to a document and I need to notify somebody, so I send an email. Well, what sometimes happens is, you know, that mail send doesn't work. Like, for example, you might be deploying a new app, or it might be an existing app and all of a sudden it's not sending. So you're trying to troubleshoot. Well, if you're like me, when I troubleshoot, I try to start at the baseline and work my way up, because I've learned in my life that 9 times out of 10, the problem is low level. Like, for example, I can't get on the network. My Ethernet cable is out of the wall. Well, duh, you know. Anyway, so I start at the base level. Now, with regards to that, I'm going to say, well, you know, is that server or database even able to send a mail send agent, or have an agent that does a mail send function? And I can also say, you know, for a particular database, is that workflow working? And how can I go about testing that? So specifically, there is a mail send agent function. And what I can do is I can select any database in my environment that I have access to. And of course, remember, you always have full access admin. But what it's going to do here is it's going to copy a mail send agent to that particular database and run it, sending an email message to me. And then I can very easily go to my respective mail database and I can see whether or not I get that message. And right here, the admin tool sent to me a mail send agent test. It means that, yes, my application and that server that it sits on was able to successfully send a mail message, or to send the email message. Knowing that, great. Level 1 has been checked off. Now maybe I'm going to go talk to the developer and say, hey, go look at your agent and see why it's not working properly. Because I have proven that my server is just fine. Alrighty. Another one that you sometimes run into, and again, this can happen for various reasons, is you have a document that you know about, like for example, you've got information in your log file, or you are deleting a document within the UI and it's not going away. It's maddening. And in those cases, historically, you have to write an agent and specify the node ID. But you know what, again, like I said, you know, I'm an administrator because I don't like to write code. So voila, this utility has a delete document for you. So I go in and I use the delete document tool. I specify my database, my server information, my database information. And then the other thing I need to reference is that node ID. Like I said, you can get that in the notes log file. It gives you that information. Also, for the actual document itself, let me show you this. You have on the document properties, on the propeller head icon, you have right here, this is your node ID. It's going to be NT, some zeros, and then some hex value information. For this utility, you only need to define the hex value information after the zeros. So in the case of the example I have on the screen, I am showing you, or I only had to define B5E, those last 3 numbers that were, or last 3 hex characters that were available. And then when I run the delete document, or click the delete document button, it will actually go against my database and delete that document from the collection. Now, I do want to point out that this is a permanent deletion. So once it's deleted, the only way to get it back, the only get out of jail free card that you have is to go against the backup that you have previously created for that Domino database. It's not a soft delete, it is a hard delete. And then finally, I want to talk about DXL exports, because I do get this one over time, in that, how do I take a database and export the documents to DXL? Fairly common, you know, it's not common, but it's fairly common. Anyway, there is a way of doing that. And the utility does have here the document DXL export tool. However, this is where I do have to give you a little bit of bad news, in that this document exporter tool was written for Windows 32-bit. It's a 32-bit DLL, okay? And because probably most of you out there that are running Windows are probably on something like Windows 10 or 11, which is 64-bit, that means that the DLL fails. It doesn't work. So good news though, I got your back, in that I've given you here, that you'll get when you get these slides, the ability to create an agent in a database, and this is any database, mail file or other type of application database, where you can go ahead and create this agent and it will output to a DXL file all of the documents, okay? And it's doing that by using a Lotus script class and a Lotus script method that have been around for a really long time. So it's not like I'm giving you any cutting edge technology that you have to be scared of. This is tried and proven. And what that looks like when I run that is, I will go to my sample document here, and you can see, for those of you that know DXL, you can see right there it is. Okay. All right, so I appreciate you all listening to me. I do want to let you know, and hopefully Howard was able to find it, but there is a download to the HCL knowledge base document where you can download that and start using it today. And honestly, there is no risk to you. This utility has been around for a couple of years. I ran through them. They didn't crash my system. It doesn't cost you anything. And like I've said over and over, it's going to reduce your administration that you do as an administrator. It's going to make your life easier. And ultimately, users are going to be happier. So thank you very much. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn. There's my email address. I love talking to people, whether you want to talk about the utility or talk about something else about Domino. Always happy to talk. And with that, I'll be quiet for a moment and see if we have any questions.
Oh, Heather, we got a lot of questions.
Well, and of course, I am more than happy to go through them and provide written up responses in a couple of days, and we'll have them for you. So
we're not going to have enough time to do them all here, but we'll definitely follow up. But Howard, go ahead.
Okay, so the number one question, you're showing version 1.3, and people are wondering where 1.4.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so yes, I talked about version 1.4, and if you go to that webpage right now, you're probably seeing 1.3. It's a publication delay, okay? As part of the preparation for this, I found that there were still references to some old IBM URLs that are non-functional. And so I took the proactive step of going to our internal teams here at HCL and asking to get them to get cleaned up. They have been cleaned up. They were cleaned up in the version that I used. However, they have not been officially published yet. They're supposed to be published by the end of the week, definitely next week, but that's all that was changed was UI stuff. So if you want to start using it today, all that back-end code is still the same. Absolutely start using 1.3. Okay,
and will the URL stay the same?
The URLs are still pointing to IBM, but after you get 1.4 and update your database design, they might get updated, or you might just need to redeploy the utility. Keep in mind that utility, when I was creating documents on the screen, right, they don't actually save these documents. They're just being used as a point in time. And like if I was to enter information like I did, for example, you saw me do one for, I can't even remember what it was at this point, but when you go back, like if you enter in information, you run it, and then you go do another one, when you go back to that same one, you'll see all your fields information is gone. It's not actually saving these documents. So for you to download it today, start using it, and then next week delete it and deploy 1.4, you're not losing anything.
Right. No, I meant the URL on the HCL website to download. Will it stay the same when you update it to 1.4?
I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. The URL is not changing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. I apologize for that confusion. I wish internally that had gotten published a little faster, but you know how it goes with legal.
So yeah, we've only got 5 minutes left in our time slot. I'm actually going to jump to the very last question, which is, can we get the presentation? And the answer is yes. For everybody on the call here, Heather's going to share her slides. We are recording this, so the recording and the link to the slides will be on the OpenNTF webinars page, which you can get to at openntf.org/webinars, which also will have links for the next month's webinar. So that's always the place to go for the presentation and the video and any information about upcoming webinars.
It's one-stop shopping.
Yes.
So here's a OpenNTF related question. There's an easy admin tool on OpenNTF that says Stephen says it has more functionality. Are there any plans to merge those? Are you familiar with the one on OpenNTF, Heather?
So Roberto, are you still around? I know that you're familiar with the OpenNTF utility.
Yes.
If you want to take that one.
Well, I guess that there are no plans to put them together, because one is developed by HCL, the tool that we heard about today, and the other is done by a business partner, and it's put for free on our website on OpenNTF. So I do not think that either one of the parties involved want to take the code of the other and put it in together. If you look at the easy admin tool on OpenNTF, it's a completely different tool, does a completely different set of things. So I guess they're more complementary one to each other. So it's not a problem to have two tools and use them both, because they do different things. So my suggestion would be to use them separately.
The other thing to remember about open source is that anybody in the community can download and enhance an application. So there's nothing stopping someone from grabbing the set of tools on OpenNTF and making enhancements, whether that's the stuff that Heather just showed or other stuff too. That's the wonderful part about open source, is that anybody can step in and make a contribution, and we certainly encourage that. So
agree.
I agree too.
Let's grab a couple of the questions here. Is there a tool to show you all of the mail rules enabled in each mail file on the server and the details of each rule? I think you showed that probably after this question was asked.
Yes, so we have here the mail rules tool. And now this is per database. So I understand the question though, it's asking about all databases, okay? Now, one thing I want to say, because you were just talking about open source, is that you're going to create this database in your environment. You have all the code. So if you are a developer or you know a developer and you buy them lunch, they could code this to do that for you. Okay. Also, there is a utility, and I'll say this because it was my former employer. I sold and supported this utility for a long time. RPR Wyatt, who has been a very long time business partner in this environment, they have a tool called Essential Agent Master, and EAM goes against a Domino server environment against all the mail files and gives you an output for every single mail file, the mail rules that are a part of those mail files, or the mail rules that are part of each mail file.
Cool. Okay, and I very much agree that once you get all the code, you can enhance it however you like. So good point. Okay, we got time for maybe a couple more. Is it possible to enable the out-of-office agent for another user with the tool that you showed?
No, the tool does not do that.
Okay.
Here's a question from Eric on the prohibit design element tool. Can you search by template, but have it look at all the databases that use that template? And he also wanted to know if it can be used other than mail files.
Hold on, prohibit design tool?
Yes.
Okay, so the way that it's written is you are selecting, well, you know, right here, it is giving you an open database dialog box. So I would say go ahead and try using it against something that's a non mail database. Go ahead and try it. It probably will work because there's, a mail database is just another database. It has design elements. So yeah, it would probably work. I would imagine it would. I can't see why it wouldn't.
Okay, and then is there a way to go the other way, have it go from the template name and find all the databases that use that template name?
Not the way that it's written here, but again, you have the code, so you could do that. Or you know what you can also do is on the HCL Domino enhancement request site, which used to be called AHA, you can create an enhancement request or open a ticket with support. HCL loves hearing about customer feedback and taking that customer feedback forward. So yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
I think we should wrap there. We're at our time. I want to just quickly mention that Eric put a comment in that said that he's going to get into the open source game and add that enhancement. So that's awesome. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Yeah, if Eric, you can put in OpenNTFs, or if it's something you can provide to me, I can work with support in getting it added into this tool. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, Heather, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
I have had a ball talking to you all today, so thank you so much, and I hope you'll have me back sometime.
Oh, definitely, Heather. Thank you so much.
You betcha.
And thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.